So today we got to talk about universal basic income. The fact that it's becoming more and more talked about genuinely concerns me because I don't think people actually understand what they're asking for. Everyone is looking at it like it's this magical sci-fi solution to AI and automation taking your jobs away. People are going to be sitting there thinking, great, my bills are going to be paid, meaning I never have to struggle again. And look, on the surface that sounds absolutely amazing, right? But I'm looking at all of this like, I don't think you guys understand what you're actually asking for. Because you see, these corporate tech heads all over your social media feed are talking about universal basic income like it's this beautiful safety net where everybody's just going to live very comfortably. But my main concern, and to my knowledge, I don't really hear many people talking about this, is what happens next? What happens the day after UBI gets fully implemented on all of us? Because that's exactly why I believe UBI isn't the path to freedom. I believe it's the beginning of a modern form of physical and digital economic slavery. Let's look at how this dependency actually plays out. So think about it this way. UBI is obviously a form of control in terms of getting society dependent on basically the government's payroll. Think of it as the government being your boss, which it currently is, but not to the level of an employer that dictates your daily routine or the field you work in. That's my major concern. When we're dependent on universal basic income, at the end of the day, you're going to see how the government is basically going to be restricting your freedoms, your rights, your bodily autonomy, and many other areas. So let's say we're all under the UBI system, and you and I step out of line. The government can just basically snap its fingers and shut that all down for us, which means we're basically under the boot of the government. You can see how this is very prevalent in other countries, specifically China, where their social credit system already dictates their daily life. If you do anything wrong, they demote you, meaning you'd be losing rights and privileges that a normal person with a normal social credit score is given. And I don't think personally the government should ever have that kind of leverage as our primary provider, as it's simply just a welfare state at a massive scale, with them saying it's for everyone, but we still own you. Also, even if UBI was written somehow into the Constitution, with the government saying it won't affect your freedom of speech, political views, religion, or your behavior, I highly doubt that, because people come and go in the government, and things can always change. Realistically, I look at the Constitution as just a piece of paper. It only goes as far as people are willing to uphold it, protect it, and even respect it. Right now, no one is, in a very meticulous and slowly eroding way. And just because UBI is unconditional on a piece of paper doesn't mean it stays that way in practice. So yes, they can encode it all they want, but that doesn't mean now it's all solved and everything will just be respected, guys. Because let's say you step out of line and start questioning things that aren't permitted. UBI would then be cut off for you, your friends, and your family. For example, if I step out of line and I say the sky is blue, when the government says it's purple, I'd be reduced in pay or cut off entirely from receiving any form of money. Do one thing wrong, and you move down the ladder. Not much you can do except obey. The government would be utilizing this as a form of total financial leverage. And in my opinion, that's how a centralized economy keeps people compliant. So there's going to be no checks and balances, regardless, even if it's in the Constitution. We're already currently seeing governmental and corporate overreach on our free speech, political views, religion, and behavior in general, without even UBI existing yet. And what's also concerning is you're seeing corporate heads like Elon Musk saying, well, we'll have to be on UBI because of the job losses from AI and robotics, which is very disturbing because at the same time, they're the ones increasing that outcome. They're exporting local jobs to foreign countries for cheaper labor, knowing that AI and automation is going to be replacing the local population. It's a very smart way, if you think about it, to get government and corporations to enslave us to the whims and wills of their plans, programs, or even just agendas, which is also why corporations love this. Because then the people will become more dependent on them. They're the ones who are operating the AI and the robotic systems. So it's only natural that they're going to have more leverage over society. And in turn, they'll have more say over us because they invest in our politicians, who at that point become just plain figureheads with no real power compared to the corporations that are just paying them. That's how corporations are the ones who end up at the top, not your politician, and certainly not you or me. Oh, and one more thing. If you look at the Middle Ages, you had kings, nobles, merchants, soldiers, and peasants. With UBI, guess who's at the top? It's going to be the merchants, investors, corporations, and etc. You can make an argument that we already live in a corporatist society, but it's going to be tenfold. people swearing fealty to the corporations rather than the state or the nation, bowing to the neo-merchant guilds. That's a problem because these corporations operate above the law for the most part, primarily in America. There's a lack of checks and balances for them compared to your average citizen. A huge power dynamic imbalance, specifically when UBI is enforced. It becomes a reality of freedom for me, but not for thee. But hey, that's only one side of the problem. The other side, and I think this one is just as important, is what UBI actually does to us as people. I think one of the biggest things people overlook is purpose, because at the end of the day, life itself is a struggle. And if there's no struggle, what's the point of even living? Some might ask, well, if all my bills are paid, shouldn't that be enough just to live my life and do what I want? Of course, but if there's no struggle or meaning behind it, what's the point of even doing it? It's like telling someone making passive income that they can do whatever they want. Sure, I've spoken with people on YouTube making passive income, and I asked them if they are genuinely happy doing nothing. Most say, I want something to provide meaning and purpose, because not everything revolves around money. Having a struggle in any form is what makes you a stronger, smarter person, one who can endure more than someone who hasn't struggled as much. Many people will ask, if UBI lets us surpass the struggle of making a living, why would that be a problem? My answer is, there's not going to be genuine passion because people won't do things with real drive. Let's say you're working a 9 to 5 that you really want to escape. Of course you want out. Develop a skill, take the time and effort to hone it, master it, then move to something greater. That requires sweat and tears, i.e. struggling, and using that to fuel yourself. I have friends who tell me every single day they want to quit their terrible job, but I tell them, hey, you know how to make music, use that as inspiration to escape your 9 to 5. You can argue AI, robotics, and UBI are coming to change that, but I don't personally see it as the end-all be-all quick fix solution. And I can already see this erosion starting, even without UBI in the picture. I'd ask college students at social gatherings, are you actually typing your essays and reading books without AI giving you the answers? 7 out of 10 say no. They just use AI to do all of it. There's no purpose in that. It's, yeah, I'm wasting money and time when I have AI to do everything for me. We are degenerating into an idiocracy kind of culture mindset. That's very concerning because there's no purpose, no meaning, no societal cohesion or structure to keep things as they are. Now, imagine that same mindset applied to your entire livelihood, not just your homework. That's what UBI risks doing at that scale. It creates a false sense of comfort with money that has no meaning at all. Because if everyone's paid the same, what's the concept of value? If nothing has value, everyone's the same. If I know more, or even just have a specific skill, I should get paid more. But we're already seeing people with hard-earned skills getting replaced by automation, relying on savings because there's no UBI yet to save them. That erosion of value is going to bleed into other parts of our lives too. So when everyone stops working, what is there to achieve? Are we just degenerating into societal and cultural collapse here? And when AI and robotics replace people, your only real option is to find a skill set that AI or robotics can't even replace yet. We're currently seeing job areas like HR, digital marketing, and digital graphic design already being replaced right now. Because companies think, well, we'll just use ChatGPT to do all of that, which is cheaper than an average person demanding more money due to inflation. That's smart for them, and it's the whole reason UBI is unfortunately going to be enforced. People need to live, and people need to be controlled. Because if they're not, it becomes chaotic. So UBI is unfortunately coming, and the problem is finding something to sustain yourself in the meantime. My advice here is this: find a skill that's not easily replaced. For example, try mechanics. For instance, that currently is not being replaced for now. Blue-collar jobs are, yes, currently overfilled with applicants, but unique physical labor is still desperately needed. In regards to white-collar jobs, they will obviously be replaced with the snap of a finger. No one's disputing that. It's going to come down to unique physical labor jobs. For now, I can't personally speak to 5 or 10 years out. That's your best bet against automation taking your job. Now, let's talk about the economics here, because at the end of the day, somebody has to pay for all of this. So just because we're getting UBI from the government doesn't mean it's free. Somebody still has to pay for all of this, just to keep that in mind. Let's say, for example, in America, a person receives $1,000 a month in a UBI program. That's $12,000 a year per person. With roughly 260 million adults, that's about 3.12 trillion every year, making it even more expensive for the government just to sustain it. There are a few ways the government could try to fund this, each with their own problems. One would be to raise taxes. A lot of people, especially on the socialist side, primarily here in America, are saying just tax the rich, tax the millionaires, and the billionaires. But tax them into oblivion, and they'll just run out of money. Who do you tax next? And even taxing them doesn't fully work in practice, because the billionaires and corporation heads already have the means to move their wealth away from prying eyes. They'll just pay off the right people as they normally do, just enough for them to look the other way. It's a lose-lose situation either way you look at it. The second issue would be borrowing more money. You can keep doing that, but it raises the national debt, and if it all collapses, everything is done. We're currently sitting at a staggering $39.8 trillion in national debt, and that's already a massive problem before UBI is even added to this equation. The third would be printing infinite amounts of money. We are already currently doing this to some degree, but it just increases the debt further. We're not solving anything. We're making the problem worse for the value of the US dollar on a global level. They'd also likely have to cut spending in other beneficial areas, that being medical research, disease cures, the military, and other funding programs, just to make room for UBI. And finally, the fourth is inflation. If more people are making the same amount of money because of UBI, prices are going to rise because people have money and can afford to pay more, which leaves people being priced out, which is already happening with the housing market. This causes people to bid higher for things because they have extra savings and want more. It comes down to who's greedy enough on both sides, the bidder wanting more, and the seller raising prices because the bidding is increasing. This applies to rent, services, and goods. If inflation is already bad now, imagine what UBI does to it in the future. So I hope all of you guys can understand where I'm coming from. Yes, I understand with our current trajectory with AI, H-1Bs, and automation replacing a lot of people's jobs, the requirement of implementing UBI to just uphold any modern society will be a must. Unfortunately, we are going to be heading into a cyberpunk-like dystopia with the merchant elite class, that being the corporations, ruling over us. And well, we can look no further than China's digital social credit system to better understand the drawbacks of UBI being implemented. It just seems that these political and corporate elites want a one-world currency, but without any freedom tied to it. Perhaps we can look at the World Economic Forum on their grand vision of a society being reliant on them for what they say is free money, even though it's not. We should also be careful in seeing how other centralized planned economies have worked out. Take the Soviet Union, for example. By the 1980s, there were breadlines and people were having no means to even sustain themselves. So yeah, now all of this should be very concerning to us all. By the way, I know some of what I said tonight probably sounds extreme to some of you, but I did my homework on this. The debt numbers, Musk's actual quotes, all of it. Linked in the description below if you want to check it out yourselves, instead of just taking my word for it. Anyways, even if UBI becomes inevitable, I still think we need to ask ourselves one important question. What kind of society are we actually building here? Because I don't think this is just about free money anymore. I think it's about dependency, purpose, and ultimately whether we're willing to trade those things away for just plain old simple comfort. Who knows how long that will even last? So whether you agree with me or not, don't just accept these ideas because they're popular. Question all of it and think about the long-term consequences. Because once systems like this are in place, they're a whole lot harder to undo than they are to prevent. Well, anyways, subscribe if you want more realistic analysis and opinions and just very simple commentary in regards to topics that will matter, whether it be tomorrow or in a few years from now. Peace out.